Hi all, welcome to this first ever virtual technical conference organized by South Asia MVP. This is a South Asia MVP initiative, 6 hours of virtual technology conference, 12 speakers, 12 MVPs in fact, and then 12 hours of technology. So at this hour, we're going to be looking at what every developer should know about Office. This is being presented by Dr. Nitin Paranjape. He is indeed a doctor, but he has made Office kind of is, maybe the, his thing now. So he is an MVP in Microsoft Office. So Dr. Nitin Paranjape, over to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So as I was mentioning to Lohit, one of the things I found was a presentation I had done in TechEd 2009 on how to conduct professional webcast using live meeting. I'm going to be sharing that at the end, but let me show you one of the best practice. Invariably, something will go wrong and the audience is clueless as to exactly what is happening. So my second slide is this. So in case there is a problem, at least we can professionally communicate that there is something wrong and let people wait. Sometimes it has happened that there were so many problems that we couldn't recover from it and we had to reschedule it. So I have the worst case scenario slide as well. So even if we can't do anything about the situation, at least the sorry slide looks more professional and you can take some brownie points. Anyway, I hope I don't have to use these slides today. Let's go into the presentation itself. I have many slides, but each slide I will speak for a very little while, and wherever relevant, I'll go into demos. If you have questions, I suggest you put those questions in Q&A, and Lohit is going to be monitoring it. And if he finds that the question is relevant at that point of time, he's going to interrupt me and ask me questions. So let's go ahead. So these were the topics which were published, but while I started working on this particular webcast, I realized that there are many additional topics which can be expanded to. So while covering these topics, I'm also going to cover a lot of additional topics as we go along. Because we have 1 hour, I'm going to speak very quickly. There is a query, please stop me. But in demos especially, I may be conducting demos a little fast. I know that there is a 7-second delay, so there may be a mismatch between what I'm showing and what you're actually seeing versus what I'm speaking. But when you see the recording and refer to it, that will become clearer. So don't worry too much about which menu I went to, where I clicked. Those are operational things. What is more important is the concepts. And once you understand the concepts, you are smart enough to apply it in your own context. So one of the things which I will discuss later amongst this agenda is these 3 things, because they are related to some baseline knowledge about how Excel works, which we will come to at a later point. But there are some topics which let me start with. I work with customers. I come across a lot of issues where people upgrade from version X to version X plus 1 and a lot of code fails. So making sure that your code does not fail is one step. Or if you're migrating from older version of Office to newer version of Office, how do you find out which code is going to break before it breaks? That is in the planning stage, not after deployment. That is a critical issue we need to handle. Commonest cause of code failure was variable names, because in the older version, the maximum number of columns we had was 256. So IV was the last column, just a 2-character column. And now in Excel, we have 16,000 columns. So we have columns going all the way, which are 3-character columns. Now, many developers had used variable names which were 3 characters, which are now clashing with the column names. That's one very common reason, which is easily manageable. Other thing is, if someone is running 64-bit edition and you're using a declare DLL command for using some Windows API, that fails in 64-bit. So these are the 2 common problems. The third problem is some feature which was there in older version has now been removed. That means that object model property or method is going to fail. In some cases, the functionality is there, but the object model names have changed. And in an organization, there may be thousands of Excel files lying around in different servers. How do you find that? Is using this tool called Office Code Compatibility Inspector. That was the older version. In 2013, that has been upgraded to something called Telemetry Dashboard. Go to TechNet and you will find complete details about these tools. These tools are free and they should be run while you're assessing the impact of upgrade from previous version to next version. Now, what does this code compatibility inspector do? It goes through the files which you ask it to. It will scan every line of code and it will find, is there some object which is deprecated, which you will have to work around by finding an equivalent method, change the items where the method may be there but the function call may have changed or something like that, which you'll have to repair, and declare statements. This is the one which is specific for 64-bit functionality, and what happens there is when you talk about 64-bit, it goes and shows you actually where the function should be. Now, normally we generally just do a declared sub functionality when you're using Windows API through VBA. But now for 64-bit, we have to add a PTR safe additional keyword. And this should be done in a conditional manner by using the hash syntax. Another thing it does is if it finds something which needs to be repaired, but it cannot repair it, it actually puts comments which tell you what to do. So what it is saying is workbook.printout is probably an outdated object command or method. You need to figure out how to work around that by using the latest object model. So in either case, it helps you assess the situation and then take a call and repair it. Now, macros is something which is a very, very common thing. I'm sure you have seen a lot of users recording macros, and you must have written macros on your own, probably. So although we have less audience here, I'm just still going to do a quick poll to find out how many of you are actually developing on top of Office. On top of Office client, I mean, okay? So as of now, nothing. Let me show you the results, in fact. So nobody is developing on Office. Let me also ask the same question for SharePoint. All right. So let me come back to the presentation and then take it from there. So typically, macros are created in two different ways. Either users record their own macros or programmers write code from scratch in order to add functionality to Office. Now that first item, which is adding new functionality, is a good use of macros. But generally, when you say macros are recorded by users, that is generally a sign that users don't know how to use the product well. Whenever they encounter something which is repetitive, they think the method is to record a macro and run the macro repeatedly. Additionally, that is the thought process, but that thought process is wrong. In reality, if you are doing something repetitive, that generally means there is a better way which you don't know about, and you should figure out what is that method. I will come back to this by giving an example a little later. So don't continue using user-recorded macros. Try to find a better way. Object model, I'm not going to discuss in detail because there aren't many developers who are actually working on the Office tools, but the best way to learn the object model is to first understand Office from a user point of view, and then understanding the object model becomes very intuitive. One of the commonest methods developers as well as users use is to perform some activity, record the macros, and then learn from it. But remember, if you record a macro of some complex activity, the code which gets generated may not be optimal. So you still have to apply your mind, find the best way, and then do it. I don't know if you have used the 2013 version. It has some additional features like Power View, Power Map, and Power Query. These are COM add-ins, and because of that, they do not support any macro recording. Now, one thing I want to mention about PowerPoint, specifically from a developer point of view, is Visual Studio has something called storyboarding. If you have installed it correctly, then what you will get within PowerPoint, apart from the PowerPoint menus, is a tab called storyboarding. And in that, you can actually create UI. You have various options there. Once you create that UI, you can use it as a presentation to demonstrate to users in early stages of system analysis and architecture. And going one step further, you can actually connect these to your TFS work items if you are using the Team server. So a tight integration between Visual Studio and PowerPoint. Developer, you may find this useful. But I'm really wanting to focus on you as a developer from a point of view of you being a user of Office rather than a developer of Office, because there is a lot of stuff you can do irrespective of which platform you're working on, irrespective of which language you use, because in spite of all that, you're going to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint in some context or the other every day. So let's look at that part. If there are any questions, please post them now. Lohit is going to be monitoring those questions, and if relevant, he'll interrupt me anytime. Okay, so few things in Office which I'm sure all of you will benefit from irrespective of what you do. I'm going to keep shifting between the PPT to applications, so just give me a second. I'm going to share my desktop now, and I'm going to show you something very simple. Let's say we have an Excel file. Let me open another Excel file for you. So let's say I have a file which contains data in multiple sheets. For example, it may take a while for you to refresh, so I'm going to speak a little slowly knowing that there will be around 7 or 8 seconds of delay. But in any case, I have just 3 simple sheets and I want to copy paste all the data one below another. Normally what you would do is go to each block of data, copy it, which goes to clipboard, and then immediately you have to paste it, because if you copy again, what was originally there in the clipboard is erased. So essentially you have only one clipboard to play with, but that is not true. What you really should do in such situation where you have to copy paste from multiple locations, ideally what you should do, and just give me a minute, I have to change one setting to make sure you are seeing colors correctly. I'm going to reduce the colors to 16 bits so it will be higher performance. And I also want to see what are the screen resolutions. Okay, so my resolution is 1768, so most of you should be able to see it without a problem. And I suggest you should press F5 so that you can see it full screen. Alright, so now what you should do is go to one block, select it. If I copy it now, it's going to be going into the single clipboard. So do not copy it and observe carefully what I'm doing. I hope the zoom is seen by you. This is where we normally do copy paste, but there is a small little button there which nobody notices. That is called a clipboard button. Click on it, and then what you will get is multiple clipboards. How many clipboards do you get? 24 clipboards. So now I go to the first block and say copy. It goes here. Then I go to the second block and copy. This time I don't need the header, so I'm going to copy only few things, and so on. Once I do that, it's going to go again in the clipboard. And you do all that, and finally you say paste all. So up to 24 blocks of information can be copied, and then pasted instantly. So this simplifies your common activity called copy-paste. Nothing great, but has been there for 22 years and hardly anybody noticed it. So it's a good thing to know. Another common problem, I'll go to PowerPoint this time, is many times we have presentations, we have Word documents, we have Excel files, and what happens there is sometimes we have comments, track changes, notes in case of presentations, and if you have to submit it as a final version to customers, very often what happens is you forget to remove something, and then that could be confidential. That could be an internal comment, something about pricing, competition, some description which you didn't want to show to the customer. So to be on the safer side, it's a good idea to remove unwanted things from Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. How do you do that? One option obviously is to do it manually, but the best way to do that is to go to File menu, go to Check for Issues, and choose Inspect Document. Now once you do that, notice what it is capable of doing. Depending on the version of Office, some of these features will be different, but make sure you select all of these and say Inspect. Now PowerPoint in this case is going to go through everything, and it's telling you there are comments. I will remove them. remove the properties and remove notes. So in few clicks, you got it cleaned up and then you send it to people. This should be the mandatory activity before any document crosses your organizational boundary to make sure some privacy data doesn't go out and some uncomfortable information doesn't leak out without you noticing it. One important thing here is don't do it on the original file because you'll lose all that content. Make a copy and then do it on that copy. Fair enough? Any questions at this stage, Lois, or should I continue?
Thank you. Good. None so far.
All right, great. So let me see what has happened to my Excel. Okay, let's come back to the presentation first and come back to live meeting. Okay. So picture compression is something very simple. I hope all of you know it. But very often when you are working on PowerPoint, sometimes it becomes an image-intensive file. Even if it's a Word document, you're creating a user manual, there can be a lot of images in it, screenshots, and the file size suddenly inflates, making it impossible to share it using email because most email providers would have some limit on the file size. And then we have to use Dropbox or SkyDrive or SharePoint or something like that. So the best way to remove that is go and click on any image and then you'll see picture tools on top. Go to compress. Unfortunately, that's a very bad UI. So in fact, I should show you how it is done. Just give me a minute to share it again. For some reason, my Excel is not working, but just give me a minute. Okay, so when it comes to compressing pictures, this method which I am about to show you is common across all Office applications, so you don't have to worry. And the menu is exactly in the same place in all versions of Office since 2007. So I'm going to share my desktop now just to show you that. Let's say I have some image here. Select any image. Then go to Picture Tools, and then you will see an option here called Compress Pictures. Unfortunately, the UI is a little confusing. Now notice what it is saying, apply only to this picture. Remove this checkbox, which essentially means apply to all pictures. It's not very nice. From a user interface point of view, this should have been a radio button, which I've been suggesting for the last many years, but you know the answer by design. In any case, choose the lowest possible resolution, and then click OK. Now it will get compressed across the board. Remember to do this for large files before you send them out. Okay, now let's come back to our presentation and see what we can do from here. In fact, because I have too many demos, I'm just going to stay here and show the presentation. That will save us some time and refresh time when I shift from presentation mode to PowerPoint mode. Okay, the next one I want to show you is about Excel. The most important thing you should know about Excel is the concept of table. Now, all of you are developers, so you obviously know what is a table in the context of databases. But what you should also know is what is the table in the context of Office, because I'm sure you use Excel files for various things. Now, one of the commonest things we do is there is data, and then we put formulas. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is whenever you add more data, the formulas are not going to change. We know this is not going to change, so we go and update the formula manually. This is default behavior for any spreadsheet in the world, Microsoft or otherwise. The problem is, before you added this data, maybe this file was shared and someone else had added some formula based on the original data. Now in that case, what happens? In that case, this person would be looking at this information, which is outdated now. You did not update this formula because you did not know that someone has updated it. So if this person looks at this formula result, it is wrong, and that will lead to inaccuracy. So from a business point of view, this is called operational risk. Now you are facing it as we speak, and every user in your organization is facing it. Nobody knows how to handle this. Although it is not Excel's problem, Excel is trying to warn you about that particular cell. That warning says don't trust that number. Unfortunately, that warning is not noticed by most people. So what do? Go to the warning and say update formula to include cells. This way, without you having to physically check how many rows were added, Excel will do the job and update the formula, thereby reducing all the risk and ensuring that there is accuracy across the board. So this ensures accuracy of all business decisions, because I'm sure you have realized by now, even if you have created a lot of applications and reports and automated everything, finally people copy paste data in Excel and then decisions are taken by looking at Excel. Now the problem is, I saw one green mark, I corrected it, fair enough, but what are those errors which I have not seen? They are also equally dangerous. So like spell check, if you go to formulas tab in Excel, it gives you an option called error check. When you click there, like spell check, it takes you to each error one by one and allows you to correct it or ignore it depending on your discretion. Once all the errors have been handled, it says now this sheet is okay. Remember, you have to repeat it on all sheets. This is a mandatory thing you have to do for every Excel file, and make sure you go back and teach this to all users in your organization, because they're suffering without realizing they're suffering. The problem with this approach is, or the best practice is, spell check in Word is done at the end point before finalizing the document, whereas error check in Excel should be done as soon as you open the Excel file, because you never know who must have introduced what errors. Now, having done the error check, right now you're good, but how long this sheet is going to remain error-free? And you know the answer. As soon as I add more data, error problems will repeat all over the place wherever there are dependent formulas. So now, first time error check we don't mind doing because it's necessary. But now that the sheet is error-free or the file is error-free, we want to retain it that way. We want to prevent further errors from happening. But someone has to go and update the formulas. We are not interested in doing it. So what is the fashion nowadays? Dirty work should be outsourced. So outsource it to Excel. Select the data and tell Excel, you're good at managing formulas, I am not. So I am allowing you to automatically manage my formulas by converting it to a table. So what is a table? A range of data in Excel, which is a cohesive piece of data. It should be in columns. Each column must have a heading, no empty headings, no duplicate headings. Simple rules. And once that is done, it will format it nicely, but that's just a aesthetic kind of benefit. When I now add more data, it is going to automatically update all formulas. Not just the formulas you remember, all the formulas anybody in the world has put related to that data, because Excel always has a dependency chain built in. So that's how you manage accuracy of data. Bottom line, every piece of raw data must be a table, and that will help you a lot in various contexts. What is the other context it will help you in? Let me show you. Many of you may be doing programming on Excel, and let's say users have given you an input data in Excel and you have to upload the data. What will you do? You will go to the sheet, open the sheet as an object, then start looking at empty rows, empty rows, empty rows, till you find a filled row. Then assume that is the beginning of the data. Then again you will go in the loop till you find another empty row, and then you will judge, oh, now the data has ended. That is very dangerous. Instead of that, once you have a table is internally represented as an object called list object, and without looping, without guesswork, you can get handle on the entire block of data, rows, columns, cells, with zero trial and error. So that's the benefit of table. Now, many times we use formulas. Sometimes we use formulas in Excel, and one important thing in Excel is to use formulas with names. For example, I have just created a random number generator. The high value, this is the low value, and I want to generate a random number between these two values. That's the requirement. Now, while I'm doing that, I wanted to put a simple formula here. There is a random number generator, which is RAND function, which is there in all languages. But Excel has another function, which is derived from rand function, which gives you upper lower limit. So instead of putting the cell range as B6 and B7, I've used a name there. Now, how did this name come about? You'll see the name of the cell is low. Any problem? Let me see if someone is not muted. I'm just going to mute everyone except me Lohit, if you need to unmute yourself, you'll have to do it again. Okay, so how do you give names to cells? Why is this important to give names to cells? Because now I clicked in this cell and I went and typed the name here. Cell did not pick up the name from here. I can delete this name without having any impact on the formula because the formula is looking at this particular cell. Bottom line, select a cell which is going to be used as a parameter in some places, click in this area and give it a name. And those names can now be used in formulas. What is the benefit? Tomorrow, for whatever reason, this cell moves to sheet 5, as long as the name is same, your file will not break. Formulas will continue to get calculated. Now, another good thing this allows you to do is tables themselves have names. For example, I have a table here which says ID and brand. Now, this is the column name, this is the column name, but if you go to table tools and say products, this is the name you can give. Even if you don't specify a name, Excel does give generic names like table 1, table 2, but it's in your interest to specify the name because now you can use the names in formulas. Okay, any questions so far or should I continue?
Please go ahead. No questions so far.
Okay. Am I too fast?
No.
You're doing excellent. You're doing excellent.
Okay. So that's about range names. Now, one interesting use of Excel I found is to gather business logic in Excel. Let me give you an example. Where is that gone? So what I've done here is many times while doing system analysis, you come across some things which are rules, and then you need to translate those rules into logic, and that logic is coded. Now, very often the rules which come initially when you're talking to users sound very simple, but when you go deeper and deeper, there are many variations which come up. So here was a application which Raj was developing for one of the retail customers, and this is a complaint management system. Now we realize that there are so many types of categories, subcategories, natures, this, that, that's not going to be describable in Word. It is best done as a database. And simplest database for users to enter data into is Excel. So now let's say nature. What are the natures here? These are different types of nature. Now, how would you do this drop down? In a programming context, you know exactly how to do it. In office context, how do you do it? So you go and first, just to show you how that is done, I have already created various types of nature here. Let me show you. So let's say types, different types. And these types themselves, as you can see, is a table. And that table has a name. And now what do I do? Suppose I want to create a drop down somewhere else for data entry containing all the types which are mentioned here. So I want to have types and let's say quantity, something like that. Now, of course, I will create it as a table first. Remember, table can be created even if there is one row, and this time we have to tell him that these are headers. So it created a table. Now I want to put data validation there. So I'll go and click on data validation and I'll say pick up the list from somewhere. Now most people would manually go and choose that range, but this time we have a table and we know the name of the table. So you say types and that's it. So just to show you the final implementation of it to save time, this is how it will pick it up. So all these are dynamic. If you had done it manually, if you had added more rows in the original thing, it would not appear. You would have to manually go and change the range. But remember, table automatically manages dependent ranges. So this becomes dynamic as well. Now the best part is this was a rules engine we were creating and there was a rules table. So going beyond using Excel for data capture, look at the last column. What it is doing is actually creating code which will be used to insert rule database rows by generating an insert into statement. So this is sort of templatization of your data from Excel and converting it to code directly. If the code which you are generating is table oriented and it can be managed in one row, means one CRLF, then it's a good idea to use Excel. If you have some data which needs to be into multiple rows, for example, you need a delete command followed by an insert command, it's best done in Word using mail merge. But I don't have time to show it. The idea. Okay, now let's go further. We have lots to cover. Okay, as developers, I'm sure you need to do stress testing and you need sample data. Data can be in various data types, but commonly it would be numbers, dates, and text. So let me show you a very quick and easy way of generating large amount of sample data. I have already created this sample data generator. It is there in your handout section. You can download it and use it. Concept is very simple. As I showed you earlier, I have asked you to specify two random numbers or two boundary numbers. This is the example. Very simple. This is a table. Now, what I want to do is, I want to extend this table. If you drag this table as much as you want, it is going to give you new range. And because this is a volatile formula, volatile function, every time you refresh the thing using F9, it's going to give you different numbers. 1 million rows you can play with. The problem comes when you want random dates. So here is how random dates are done. I have two parameters I am asking. What is the ending date and how much backdated you want? Now, the date on which I want to start, or this is the ending range and 4 months backwards. So 30 multiplied by 4. So what is the formula here? Notice what is the formula? Base date, which is this, minus, because we want backdated. If you wanted future dates, you should have said plus. Rand between 1, which includes the base date, and months multiplied by whatever this is. What is months? The name for this cell. Now, why is it not looking like it's because I have not applied the formatting. So let me apply the formatting. All these will be 4 months backward date. If I wanted, say, 3 years backward random dates, I just change it. I'll get 3 years backward dates. Very simple, very easy. This is good because it's directly using the rand between function. And internally, dates is also stored as a number. So this is easy. But what if you want to do something for textual things? For example, I have these products and I want sample data which distributes all these products and thousands of rows of these. That is a little difficult. So what you do is you first create a list of products, give them some primary key here, make sure it is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we will use a function called VLOOKUP. What is VLOOKUP? If I say VLOOKUP 2, what is it going to see? It's going to go to the first column rather, search for 2, and I can say whenever you find this, give me the data from here. So if I'm searching for 3, it will go here and get you the data from second column. And because we don't want the same number, we will use 1 to 5 as a random number, and then we will get random data. So what is this? VLOOKUP. What are we looking at? Some number between 1 to this. I have put count A so that if you add more data, it will count properly. And then the product is the table, and we want second column to be returned, and 0 is a parameter, which means exact match. You can download and play with it and understand. The only issue which I mentioned here is if I add a new item, that new item will not appear automatically in the table. Why? Because number 6 was not physically added here. So that's the only extra thing you have to think of. And of course, whenever you press F9, you will get new numbers. This way you can create random numbers, realistic ones, very easily. I don't have time to show you, but if you really want genuine random numbers, but let's say Office and Windows sell much more than Xbox and SharePoint, right now what is it going to do? It is going to generate pure random numbers, pseudo-random numbers. So everyone will get 100 divided by 6, whatever it is. If there are 5 items, distribution will be 20% of each item. If you want specific distribution of items, then you should have a separate thing. What you should do is you should create a distribution matrix like this. So this product is 0.1%, this is 0.2, this is 0.5, whatever it is, the total should be 1. And then you put the products here. Then you have to go to data analysis, which I have not loaded, and then you have a random number generator there, which is more sophisticated and give you custom distribution of random data as well. The sample file is there in handouts. I'm sure where this is the icon where you get the handouts. Pivot table, I'm sure all of you have used it. If not, please use pivot tables because it's a great tool for prototyping reports. In initial phases of system analysis, users are not clear about what they want, and then we try to ask them what they want, which is a mistake, and then they give you ambiguous results, and by the time the system is coded, data is created, and the ending stage of user acceptance comes, it is too late, and then finally you show some reports and people say, sorry, this is not what I wanted. So the best way of doing that is generate quick reports using pivot tables, get it clarified, show them possibilities, and then the iterations are much lesser. So just to show you some capabilities of Excel, pivot table. I'm not going to go into details of exactly how pivot table is done, but while I'm showing this, I suggest you think in your mind, if I was doing it through a report writer by writing a query, what query would I write? So I have few things here which I'm going to work on. We have some segments of customers, we have types of customers, we have some customers listed or not listed, and what kind of business we have done with them. We have an amount and a date. So let me create a pivot table just to show you what is possible. I don't expect you to follow exactly what I'm doing in terms of operational drag drop, but that you can figure it out later. So let's do the simplest thing, drag and drop amount, that will give you total amount. Nothing great, this is select sum simple. Now we will do this, which is simple group by segment. Now by default, this will show you row labels. Don't get confused. Don't type the word segment. Go to design, go to report layout and choose tabular form. Don't ask me why, it will take 5 minutes. Now this is okay. You could have done it easily, but now look at the power of pivot table. When you right click, you will see show values as, and it gives you extremely powerful options of converting this data in more meaningful way. Right now, everyone knows this is grand total and these are the contributing subtotals. But understanding which one is bigger and smaller is still difficult. Most people would sort it, let's say, in descending order, which is fine. But this is 3-9 and this is 3-4. It's still difficult to understand the proportion. So it's a good idea to go to show values as and choose percentage of column total. Now it's much simpler. Now many people would want the actual amount also, which is fine. Just drag drop the amount. I have one more drag drop, and in one place you have average, another place you have percentage, third place you have whatever, minimum, maximum, all that can happen. But wait, let's do something more complex. What is this 17%? Telecom is contributing to the overall business 17%. Fair enough. Now I drag drop type of business. Now notice what happens. I'm doing 3 types of business. 1, 2, 3. Now this becomes a little confusing because this 17 is out of total business. And now I would like to say in telecom, new product sale is 5%. How much is it in trading? How much is it in government? Now you would be tempted to compare this 5% with this 6% or this 2%, which is not the correct comparison because this 5% is also out of grand total. It is not out of this really. That becomes very confusing. So what ideally you would want, if you want to compare new product sale of telecom versus new product sale of trading, these 3 things, which are currently totaling to 17.74, should ideally total to 100. These 3 should also total to 100. Then you can compare them. And now think of the SQL query which will be required to do that, and look at how easy it is in Excel. Again, go to show values as and say percentage of parent row total. 2 clicks and you got exactly what you want. And if you want to make it even more visually intelligent, what you do is go to home, go to conditional formatting, because reading too many numbers is confusing, and put something called data bar. Now notice, because I selected only one cell, it added cell only one data bar, which doesn't make any sense. So now you open this icon and say do it for all of them, and now you get a much better interpretation. So in some cases, Excel being used as a quick prototyping tool as well as the final rendering of reports can make sense. And this makes even more sense in cases where the data is not coming from Excel, but the data is coming from a database. You can use BCS in SharePoint, Business Connectivity Services, dump that data into an Excel list, SharePoint list. And SharePoint list is a valid OLEDB provider for Excel chart as well as pivot table to come from. So you create the data, put it on SharePoint, which is good from a security and auditing point of view as well. Create an Excel template which connects to that data and leave it to users. So you are giving a standard report which is refreshable In fact, if it is external data, you can actually refresh it on the fly. You can have a setting called refresh on open, and users can play with it the way they want, which means your manual work required in generating reports is minimized. So that's how things can become much simpler. So I strongly suggest you go to pivot table and understand everything in show values as. If you are working on 2007 or below, you will not find this option. That option is here then. Right click in data area, go to value field settings, go to show values as, and then all the options are there. Some options are new, which were added in 10 or 13. But in either case, for almost 20 years, 80% of these options have been there, completely underutilized by users as well as developers. Okay, so let's go further. Power pivot is another new thing. I'm not going to demonstrate because it will take time. But remember, if you have large amount of data, and many users struggle with large Excel files because pivot table becomes very slow, memory and hardware becomes very challenging, and then if the data is in millions of rows, typically it will become a data warehousing kind of requirement, and IT will have to do it. So now we have an alternative. If you install Power Pivot, which is an add-in, which is a free add-in on top of 2010 and 13, actually handle millions of rows of data using normal Excel file without any upgrade of hardware or software. And it also gives you many sophisticated functions like parallel period, YTD, MTD comparisons, parallel comparison between current year, this quarter, similar quarter last year, unique count, and many other things which were earlier found only in MDX. So what Microsoft did is MDX was designed for data warehouse and a multidimensional database. They brought the best functionality from there and implemented it as additional Excel functions through Power Pivot. So users who don't understand MDX can still do self-service BI. But although it was designed for users, unless you understand database and some amount of querying concepts, you will not be able to utilize it fully. So this is one favor you can do to users. Go to users, find out who is struggling with large data, implement Power Pivot, apply your mind and give them the functionality which now they can use on their own. Just to give you an example, I have a file, I don't want to show it right now, which has 59 million rows and the file size is just 5 MB. How does that happen? Because it creates an in-memory cube with a very sophisticated dedupe algorithm, which is used by SQL Server data warehousing. That's why it can compress. Now, many times you will find that the data is not compressing as much as you can. The reason being, generally the fact table often has a primary key. And the moment there is a unique item across rows, the compression ratio goes down. And generally in real life, fact table need not have a primary key from a functional point of view. So remove the primary key in the fact table and then the compression ratio can be 100 times better. Okay, so two new things which have been added in 2013 are called Power View and Power Map. Let me show you that. I hope I have the data here. Any questions you can ask me while I'm switching the files. Okay, here is what we have. So this is the data, very simple data. Some city, I have sold some product through either retail channel or corporate channel. That's it. Now, what is Power View? Power View is a Silverlight based functionality which allows you to create more sophisticated visual interactive reports. I don't know if you have seen it or not, but this report could be generated in just few seconds. Now, what does this report tell you? This report is telling you the breakup of 3 products and it is showing you geographical distribution of that. Now, just to show you how this works, notice that this is a separate chart and this is a map. Now, how does this map get drawn? Originally, this whole thing was a chart. How did I create the chart? By going to field list and dragging and dropping here like a pivot table. Now, originally, because this was a chart, let me show you how this works. Originally, let's make it a simple bar chart. So it looks like this. All that I have to do is go and say map. I have not got any information in my raw data about longitude, latitude. As long as it understands the countries or cities or locations, it will map it. Now remember, this requires a Bing Maps web service call, so internet connection is required, and there is a weird problem there. If your local is India, it will not draw the map for political reasons. So if you want to show this demo, you'll have to change it to something other than India. I have escalated this problem, but nothing has happened. Anyway, now that we have this, let's see what more can we do with this. As of now, this sounds like there is one chart and one map, which is good, better than before. And of course, this is Silverlight, so if you publish it on SharePoint, it will work without Excel and any Silverlight supporting browser on any device, of course. Now, the best part is when I click on something, it automatically becomes a filter. Not only from here, if you click again, it's going to be no filter. Now, notice what I'm doing. I'm zooming in and I'm scrolling. I'm going to Bombay and I'm clicking on Bombay. Now, notice what happens. It dynamically changes other things. So you can put many charts, many visuals on the same surface, and every element of every visual surface component becomes an automatic filter. So this is the brilliance of Power View. Now, one more thing it allows you to do, which is very interesting, and imagine how much coding would be required to get this done otherwise on whatever platform you use. Notice what I'm showing here is the amount. I'm not using the type or the product in this chart. What am I using? Amount and city. Now I want to show the product also. Now, how do I manage that? So look at the content here, where table has rows, columns, and data, which is common. Now I'm going to drag product and drop it onto a special area called color. And notice what happens. That thing becomes a pie chart. The pie chart comes up to show you what you are doing, and it also shows you tooltips. All this, remember, is dynamically available interactively on pure SharePoint as well. Now, as though this was not enough, Microsoft created one more thing called Power Map. A new tool, you'll have to install it. So once you install it, you will see map option in your insert menu in Excel. So click in the table, go to map, and then it will ask you what kind of map you want to do. This is called GeoFlow, by the way. New tour. So it opens a separate UI and gives you the data. I hope you can see it. I'm going to do it a little slowly because it will take some time to refresh. So now the only geographical thing I have is city. So I click on this and then I say map it. Now once I say map, it needs to know what should I plot. So it asks you what do you want to plot, in which case I'm going to put business. And then it just draws that chart. Or rather, instead of business, I'll put amount. And notice what happens now. It has drawn a nice chart of India. This is a 3D chart. I am sure you can't see the 3D part of it, the dynamic part of it. But with very little effort, it actually drew the chart. There are three types of chart: column chart, bubble chart, which we just saw, but this is unmanageable right now, and a heat map, which is also nice. Gives you color coding. Now the best part is, this is as though you think this is great. No, this is just the beginning. Now let's say I wanted to start presenting from one location. Let's say here. Now notice that I'm not seeing map labels. So just one click, you will see map labels as well. So let's say I wanted to start with business happening in Bangalore. So I say, okay, choose Bangalore, and this is one scene. Now I can say add another scene, and now I want to show what happened in some other city, let's say Bombay. And like this, you create a set of scenes, and then it will generate what is called as a tour. And at every level, you can choose the duration, the transition, and the special effect it shows. So it's a brilliant tool available out of the box. Just add that add-in. I'm sure even if your organization has 2013, the chances of your users finding that this even exists is zero. So it's your job now to go back and teach them. Of course, that will reduce your programming as well and generate better reports. Another thing about reports is very often you use charts, and charts people spend a lot of time on. So one common thing which people don't know, which is very important, is many times we generate a chart and that chart is always not the way you want. You have to spend time customizing it. So let's assume that I have spent that time on customizing it. Just give me a minute. So I have some chart here. Let me freeze the numbers. Now, assume I have done some customization on the chart. Let's say I don't want this. I want gap between them. All sorts of things users do. The problem is next time they dump the data next month, they will have to repeat those processes again. Now, the one thing which most people don't know, this is added in 2007, is when you right click on the chart, you have an option called Save as Template. And once you save as a template, what happens? Let me show you. Next time you have different data, but you want exactly the same chart, you go to Insert, do not go to Standard menu here, go to this corner, and then go to All Charts, Templates. And then you will see your chart. In one click, you will get customized charts. Now remember, this is stored as a separate file in the default user profile templates directory. And ideally, how you should implement it across the organization, ideally you should put it in a document library on SharePoint. In the login script, you should map the document library as a drive, and using group policy and GPMC, set something called workgroup templates folder to that drive. So everyone in the organization gets ready to use charts exactly the way bosses or customers want it with zero extra effort.
Nitin,
You can also
I just
use it
want
as a
to
programming output. Yes.
Nitin, I just want to ask that can you please repeat the method how to save this as template?
Yeah, sure. First of all, you customize the chart exactly the way you want. Now, right click on the chart, you will see an option called Save as Template. That's all.
Okay.
If you are using
Thanks.
2007, in 2007, in Design tab, the first option on left side is Save as Templates, and 2013 they changed that location to right click. That's the only difference.
Okay, thanks a lot.
So when you say Save as Templates, yeah. One more thing to notice here is when you say Save as Template, notice that the path automatically changes to the correct folder. Don't change that path. If it is in the wrong place, that will not appear in the template gallery. Okay, so let's go ahead. Another beautiful feature which has been added. Okay, one small thing. Many times you have users which give you business logic in Excel, and then you implement it as a ASP page or something on Java or whatever language you use, and the results don't match. The reason because of that is Excel works on double as the default all across the board. So if you have used some other data type, there will be some mismatches. So make sure in your code everything is declared as double if you want it to match with Excel. Now, the next thing is flash fill. This is a brilliant feature which was recently added. I'm sure all of you know what are regular expressions. So what Microsoft did is, without complicating matters and telling people what are regular expressions, they made it so simple so that people don't waste time in cleaning up data. Many times data comes not in the format you want. We will go into that a little later, but let me show you the demo in any case. So what does flash fill do? Flash fill allows you to do pattern matching. For example, let's say I have this data. It has cement, 4 tons. Now, what Excel says is this is what you got. Don't worry about wasting your time creating a formula or text to columns to extract that. Let's say I want the 4.2.4332 to be extracted. You just tell Excel what you want by giving an example. So I'm just saying 4. And then I type a special key, which is Control E. This is a new shortcut. This is called flash fill. When I press that, it figures out the logic by internally doing a very sophisticated pattern matching algorithm and then gives you the results. Very simple, very effective. Remember, sometimes if the data is not consistently of the same format, it may fail, in which case it will warn you. In some cases, by giving more than one examples, it will understand. Here is another nice thing. Imagine trying to write some code or a complex formula to generate acronyms. Here I have just typed the acronym, I press Control E, and it does the job. The last thing, I'm sure you have struggled with it, inconsistent data. Say this is the mobile number, but look at the way in which differently people have put mobile numbers. You may have one logic which will work for row 2. You will need a separate logic for row 3. How many kinds of logic are you going to write? Instead of that, just do Control E and you're done. Remember, this functionality is available through object model as well. So, Lohit, we are running out of time. So, do I continue or close?
You still have 4 minutes. I see one question, so hang on. Yeah, I think we're good. So, I mean, you still have 4 minutes if you want to go ahead. No, I certainly would love to see that. So, go ahead.
Okay. So, let me see if I have to cut down, which one should I focus on? Definitely. Okay. The last thing I actually want to show, and very important for as a developer, is you can do big favor to all users in the world by rewriting this option called export to Excel. Now let me explain what happens. Typically what happens is you have a database which is nicely normalized. That has been done, application is written, final stage is we generate reports. How do you generate a report? Look at the data structure, create a query which essentially denormalizes the data, gives you one or more flat record sets. You use those record sets to write the report through some kind of report writer. And then finally, you give two options, print or generate on web, whatever it is, the default. And as a favor to users, we give export to Excel option. And that is where the problem starts. When you say export to Excel, what are you really doing? You are just redirecting the output of the report writer instead of a web page to an Excel file or something like that, or a CSV, which essentially is the printout going as Excel. And that is the worst format from a user point of view. I'm sure you can relate to this. Every user who generates reports from LOB systems suffers through this because this is not analyzable data. This is a snapshot report. This was designed for printing, not for further analysis. So originally it was the end point from a developer point of view, but from some user's point of view, now it has become a starting point. And my starting point is so bad that I'm now forced to select these 10 rows, delete them, then go to 12th row, delete it, go to this, delete it, go to this, delete it. This is called inefficiency, and this is developer-induced inefficiency. Because if you remember, by doing this, by deleting unwanted rows, what is that poor user trying to do? That person is trying to regenerate the denormalized record set which you already had. You spoiled it and gave it to them, and the entire world is wasting time redoing the whole thing because they don't understand what is denormalized. They can't escalate a problem to IT saying this is wrong because they asked for this report. So it's a bad situation. So what you should understand is export to Excel should be not this dump of the printout. Or if you are in doubt, you can have traditional export to Excel as it is dumping like this and export to Excel for further analysis as an option. And what should you do in that option? You have already got the query, you have already got the denormalized data, dump that in Excel and let people make pivot table, power pivot, whatever they want and then get their job done. In some cases, you know what is the default expected output, so you create a pivot table programmatically. How do you do that? You create a pivot table template, stuff that data programmatically and refresh it so that people get a base pivot table and get full flexibility, and it reduces your work also of creating multiple variations of the report. So it's a best of both worlds situation. Now, if this is done by people worldwide, I can guarantee every user who is struggling will save at least half an hour a day lifelong on every desktop in the world. So this is the single most important contribution developer community can make to increase efficiency of users. Remember, users are never going to come back to you with this request because they have no clue what has happened. So I guess we should close now. If you have questions, I will take questions. Let me again show you what deliverables I'm giving you. Of course, I'm giving you the PDF version, not the PPT, because everyone may not have a presentation. I also discovered a user guide for live meeting. In case you are going to conduct live meeting, it's a good idea to upload this particular file there. It gives you troubleshooting steps for which users can manage. As I mentioned earlier, I had done a 1.5 hour session, I think, on how to conduct webcasts using meeting. That entire recording is available. Because it's large size, I could not upload it here. So you can note down this drive ID and download it from there. One sample file for the random number generator is also uploaded. You can download it from here. So that's it. Thanks a lot for your time. If you have any questions, I'm here. This is the same URL, by the way. There are many other videos as well.
Thanks, Doc. That was an excellent session. Even I didn't know some of these things. I've been a developer for, I'll be a developer for a long time, but believe me, some of the demos that you showcased, that was just awesome. So we will just stick around for maybe, 4 more minutes or 5 more minutes. We'll see if there are any questions. I see.
Yes, of course.
Okay, you have already
some questions.
Instant feedback. Somebody is saying excellent session. So there you go. So if anybody has any questions, please use the Q&A panel and then log your questions. Both myself and Doc will be looking at the Q&A panel, and then we'll try to moderate it. So go ahead. This presentation is recorded. If you would like to come back and then have a recap of what has been presented, please visit the website virtualtechconference.azurewebsites.net. Most probably by next week or so, we will try to see if we can get all the replay links. This is a live meeting recording. We'll try to get the replay links and then put it up. Please go ahead. The floor is open for Q&A. If you have any questions, please log it. We'll be here for another 3 minutes. Then we'll finally close it off. I'll stop the recording for now.